We are on.
Hi, we are
Hey,
on.
looks like we're on. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Sunday Hang, or the Weekend Hang, as we're calling it now. Um, I'm uh, I'm in St. Louis, of course. I think most of you know that by now. And I'm coming out of Autumn Hill Studios and Rob Silverman's place here. This is a great studio, and I've been very busy in it. Actually, I've been very busy mixing. I haven't been playing so much, so I thought I would start by talking to you today and kind of showing you some warm-ups that I do when I haven't been playing for a while. But before we do that, Steve, how are you in
I'm
LA?
good.
There, are you good today?
I am good. And
Yeah,
we had a nice little hang last week. Dave was here in LA and we ate a lot of sushi, which was nice.
it was. It definitely was. Yes, it was
But you took,
It's nice to be there and see you guys and hang with my daughter and go on a track day and get my car on a carrier and bring it back here to St. Louis. So yeah, it was a lot of fun. Nice time off. But anyway, yeah, pertaining to not playing for a while and needing to get reacquainted with the instrument. So when I'm in a situation like that, what I like to do is I sort of like to involve the whole body and get everything going simultaneously, so that I can attack warming up the hands and the feet, so that I can attack reacquainting myself with the drum set positioning, and also to get my stamina levels going again, and also pay attention a little bit to independence, all at the same time. So what my little go-to that I do, and I've probably done this before on these in one way or another, is to set up an ostinato pattern, more or less, with the feet, and then play some hand stuff. But I, rather than just kind of playing like I normally do in a solo situation, this is specifically for warm-up stuff. So we'll see where it goes. I mean, I don't have anything specific. I mean, I do. There's stuff in the school that I talk about for these for this exercise, actually, where I get the feet going, and then play, some singles and doubles and three per hand, four per hand, that type of thing. But for now, I'm just going to kind of improvise it, and I'm going to also, so that puts it into making it musical, or attempting to. So I'm thinking about phrasings at the same time that I'm just kind of warming up hands. So it would be, something like this, okay? Yeah, so when I'm doing this, I'm actually going to be thinking about, the hands and, the technical things that I need to kind of reacquaint and get warmed up. So that's wrists, fingers, arm movements, all the stuff. So I want to say one thing here. What I've been doing with the hand and foot stuff, right, is a 3/4 16th note pattern. Now I just changed to a samba pattern. So this kind of thing is good to practice because it's, as you tell, I screwed it up because I was used to doing the 3/4, which is a consistent triplet pattern. The samba is a way different pattern, right? It's the, as opposed to 3, 4. So that's an independence thing, that, you know, and you have to concentrate on that. So, but you can do, if the 3/4 thing is too difficult at first, start with a samba and just play those kind of 16th note exercises, singles, doubles, all kinds of hand stuff, right? So. Okay, so those are a couple of ideas, all right? So the other thing that I like to do is work hand and foot combination stuff, all right? And again, this is warm-up material. This doesn't mean that I'm just going to play solos all the time. That's not the point. The point is to get familiar with your drum set, get familiar, re-familiar with all of the combination aspects. So when it comes time to just play, in other words, simpler stuff, grooves, that you have to be comfortable with yourself in the system, you know, in the zone here on your kit, so that you don't hesitate and movements and motions are natural. So it's of my opinion that practicing the stuff that I'm talking about here with all this independent stuff, movements, motions, different technical stuff. And again, we talk about this, I talk about this in the school a lot. There's courses designed to help your hands and your feet to be in a position where you're more comfortable to just play. It's not about, like I said, this is not just for like playing solos or fills. This is to become comfortable so that even the most simple stuff, when you have to play music, that's the point, is comfortable for you, okay? So the next thing that I like to try to do is involve hand and foot combination things with all kinds of inversions, meaning that if I'm doing, well, let's say a triplet, for example, between the hands and the foot. If I'm going 1, 2, 3. So that's just starting with the right hand, right, left foot. And so the idea would be to take that and invert it every possible way. You could start with just alternating, okay, alternating the triplets. So that's one idea. Then we have 3 strokes here, right? So right now I'm starting with the hand, but you can invert the strokes, right? So that your bass drum position, your hand position changes. So real quickly, what I mean by that is we got right, left foot. Well, we also have right foot, left, right? And we have foot, right, left, and then all those inverted as well. So if you take that concept and you play spontaneously, now you have to go through the basic stuff so that your coordination is able to play left, right, you know, and right, left. Okay, so, you know, kind of quickly here. this will be a coordination mind game, because when you start switching right and left and you start putting that foot at the beginning, in the middle, at the end of the triplet phrase, believe me, it sounds not so involved, right? It's just 3 strokes. But when you're talking about inverting everything and keeping the hi-hat going at quarter notes, that's a little bit tricky. So, so these are all, you know, basic foundational things to work on. And then again, I just try to put it into, you know, a freedom, spontaneous place around the kit. And you can do it in 16ths too, kind of like this. Okay, so a little demo on just trying to get around the kit, keeping the time going, alternating, and playing things like that, okay, with the hand and foot combinations. Okay, and then of course, you know, once you're warmed up, you know, where you got your feet in a place that's why those independence exercises are so good, because if you get like that 3 against 4 thing and you take it up the tempo and you do it for like 20 minutes, you know, you're going to get a workout, your stamina, plus you'll practice all your independent stuff and think musically all the time, right? So kind of like okay, so another little demo. And then again, you know, of course, like I said, this is not all about just soloing type of situations, right? It's important to put on that click track, put on a track, and work at your comfort level of playing grooves, right? You're going to play a, again, you know, I talk a lot about the different motions and the different movements of the hands you know, to make something work on the drums. And I'm a big proponent of molar technique, especially when we're playing the hi-hat for grooves like this, for example, okay? Now, there's a lot that you could do with this to change the pulse idea. Right now I'm playing a quarter note pulse, 16th notes, so the molar motion is carrying the second, third, and fourth 16ths, right? And then the quarter note is, you know, is coming down into that down position of the molar. If I wanted to change that accent pattern to 8th notes, then I would do something like this, right? Okay, so first quarter notes. Now, of course, with this kind of groove, you know, the important thing is the foundation. It's the bass drum and the snare drum, so that you are playing consistently, and the hi-hat is kind of the motion flavor, is what I call it. It's the perpetuator of the pulse and the subdivision feel, because as you heard, that's a big difference between just 16th notes with a quarter note accent and then 16th notes with an eighth note pattern. So we're at 2 bars of each. So obviously you can put those accents wherever you want, but when we're talking about feel change, that's a good way to perpetuate it. Again, I talk about this in the school quite a bit. You know, the Moeller technique, like I said, this is all in the courses about how to develop this stuff, and lots of ways to do things. But anyway, that's kind of my warm-up per se. And I just do it for a good amount of time. You know, I go around the drum set to make sure that I'm remembering positionings of how to get around the drum, 16th notes, you know. I don't want to be bringing this hand, you know, into like this position where, and I don't want to be hitting the cymbal. So getting around the drums, you know, like this is really, you know, something that I want to pay attention to with my angles and my positioning, my hand position to be in that American grip position, going around the kit when I'm using wrists, instead of playing like this. Or if you're a match grip, you know, player, you know, there's a lot of ways to do this, and you know, my way is, it's not even my way. I mean, I've, you know, been taught by great teachers over my career so far, and my adaptation is to understand that for me, it works better trying to play with the wrist than it does playing with the wrist this way. Now, if I play finger control, that's another thing, but I don't really use fingers on tom-toms ever. It's mainly a snare thing or a cymbal thing. So anyway, those positioning things are very important to remember, and just go over to kind of refamiliar muscle memory with it, right? So you notice all these things, you know, you start saying, okay, maybe I need to move that a little bit that way to not hit it on the way up. So refamiliarize, get your muscle memory going, warm up. I do a lot of stretching before I play. This is a great one for the, you know, for the forearms here, and you know, just taking, you know, the hand, the fingers this way. And of course, there's leg warm-ups and stuff to do, which I actually didn't get to do today. I just played instead. So, but anyway, that's kind of my welcome back warm-up. And there you go. I don't have my comments on here. How are we doing with questions, Steve? What's up?
A lot of good stuff, and actually, a lot of people are asking about your amazing drum sound because it's hard to not pay attention to that when you're playing. It sounds so good, and maybe you could get into the tuning aspect, but also the touch aspect. You talk about that a lot in the school, how the touch also influences the sound.
Okay, yeah, I've seen a lot of questions here fly by. Let's see. I saw somebody ask something that went flying. These go like this. Somebody asked about what's my take on practicing with a pillow, and you know, I used to laugh at that because I heard that Buddy Rich had said it to Dennis Chambers, for example, and you know, and he was a proponent of it, supposedly. I don't know. I never got to really ask him, and that was one topic that never came up with Freddie Gruber with me. It was about, hey, is that pillow thing for real? But I got to tell you something. I don't necessarily know if a pillow is necessary, but when I practice on my leg, for example, I mean, this could, you know, be viewed as a pretty hard pillow, right? Just doesn't bounce at all. So the point is that, you know, with a pillow or anything soft, any surface that doesn't bounce, you're relying on your technique. You're relying on you to do it all. And this is, you know, since I started doing the school and realizing and talking to guys like Dom Famularo and different people that about the technical aspect, doing some studying myself of just re-watching Buddy videos and, you know, and a lot of other guys, there is a controlled stroke, which I don't let go at all. You know, all the 5 fingers are on the stick. You know what I mean? So this is a controlled stroke, and it's similar. I saw a lesson go by here, or a question go by about the brushes too, because you know, playing brushes is a very similar thing. Now you notice my wrist is moving, and I'm playing like this, right? So this is also a controlled stroke, you know, and on the drums. Those are very horizontal strokes, right? Those are up and, you know, vertical up and down, right? So that's one way to play the brushes. But you know, the answer to that question about brush videos in match grip, I've only seen a couple guys play match grip brushes that blew me away. One of them was Bill Stewart, because when I first heard him play without the visual, I never would have guessed he was a match grip guy. But you know, anything can be done if you work out the positioning and the muscle memory. I personally can't teach anything about, you know, match grip brushes, because I play traditional grip 98% of the time anyway. But there is a brush course on the school, and I did a lot of research with a lot of my favorite brush players, and I talk a lot about the different ways to play brushes. But back to the pillow thing. Yeah, I think it is important to practice, you know, without bounce as well as with bounce too, because when you're playing louder and you're playing heavier with big open strokes, you know, the bounce factor becomes very important for me anyway. Okay, if I'm playing this kind of an open stroke, you know, I'm relying a lot on the bounce of the ball. That's how I put it, because it is like bouncing a ball. You put the ball down, the ball comes up by itself. You don't hold on to the ball and bring it back up, right? It's a bounce. So, you know, this happens, but in a controlled stroke, not so much. It's in the hand, but this is all that kind of thing. So I think, yes, you know, the answer is it's good to practice on surfaces that don't bounce, so that you can develop your control and power and ability to play in a controlled stroke fashion. And quite honestly, most of the time I use that when I have to play softer. If I have to play softer on the drums, I'm not going to let go and have it bounce so much, right? Because I want to control it and be more down here. So if I have to play soft, so I can play controlled and play things that I want to play, and that's from that development. So yeah, practice your controlled strokes. Yeah, there we go. What else? What else we got?
All right. Well, I'm still seeing a lot of stuff about tuning. So
yeah.
I don't know if you want to talk about your sound a little bit from that. Couple of guys, because it's just unmistakable while you're playing and we're listening to all this great stuff. The drums just sound really great. That probably crosses over a lot of lines, though. I'd have to say, right, your touch, your tuning.
Yeah,
and
well, of course,
recording course where you really show us how to set up.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not doing, you know, any tricks per se on the way in for the sound that you're hearing. I can't, you know, I have a HD native Pro Tools system, right? So I can't use plugins per se on the way in at 64 buffer size, right? Because I don't want any latency when I'm playing, so that I hear myself when I hit. So therefore, you can't have a lot of plugins taking up all the memory and creating latency and creating all these problems. So I have very basic EQ on stuff, and it's generally kind of just adding a touch of high end. The overheads are pretty flat, and so I saw somebody ask about the overhead position. I use a stereo pair. They're right up here, basically, and equal distance from the middle of the snare, you know, kind of taking a picture of the cymbals, like it's more facing the ride than it is these two guys, because these are going to be a lot louder, and I want this to be dominant if I don't have a ride cymbal mic, which generally I just don't use, because if I had more cymbals back here, then I might consider it. But I try to get the picture with the microphones just, you know, in a position that is taking a picture, as it were, of how I, you know, want the cymbals to sound. Now these cymbals are also really balanced, okay, especially the crashes. So there's not, you know, you notice these two cymbals are the same height, and that's kind of by design. If this guy was way lower and this guy was way higher, well, you're going to hear more of that one than this one. So the proximity of where the mic is and according to where the cymbal heights are is on purpose, and it's also, of course, to physical, you know, physical comfort, right? So yeah, I prefer the stereo pair generally. I saw somebody ask about the XY, which is putting up mics here. I've never liked that sound. It makes more sense, I guess, from the center perspective of the snare drum. And what I mean by that is you have to be careful about this equal distance and equal center distance from the snare, because if you got your left overhead over here, you know, looking, and the right overhead is way over there, then the snare drum is going to be left heavy in the stereo imaging of the overheads. That's really important. Now, the bass drum and the snare drum are slightly offset, so it's a hard one to get. Since the bass drum is usually more dominant in the lower frequencies, and I tend to put a high-pass filter at about 70 hertz on the 60 to 70 hertz on the overheads, which I don't even know if it's there now. Let me just take a look and see what we got on this. But the point is that, you know, it's that's why I generally, I don't even have no, it's pretty flat. And I'm adding, I don't know, 2 dB at, you know, like a 5K shelf on the overheads, and it's a cheap plugin. So it's just adding a little bit of crystal, you know, stuff on top. But the reason that I use the snare is because of that high pitch, and it's closer to the microphone. So I don't want, and I like to get a lot of my drum sound from the overhead, so I don't want that snare being off to one side like that. So be very conscious of where those overhead mics are in accordance to where the center of the drum is. And you know how I do it? I take my headphones and I take this part, I hold it in the center, and then I go, you know, I go up to the mics like that. That's a quick way to do it for me. But you got to have some, you know, short of a tape measure, which I don't get that crazy with it, but I do get equal distance. I try to get the distance, and again, the separation. Yeah, so I saw that question last week too, or 2 weeks ago. There was about the processing, about what's going on with the drum sound. So I have 2 room mics here, and you know, basically, if I were to let's do a little a fun little thing here. If I take off. Let's see how I can do this quickly if I can. Let's see, we'll turn off the drums. All right, now, so if I go and I play the drums with just the room mics on, okay? Now these are these 2 room mics, okay? It's this. I have no idea if you're hearing that or not, but they're not on that much. I would say, you know, they're about 55% of where the overhead level is. So if I add the room mic that's out there, right, which is the big room, I'm just micing the room facing it the other way. So that's kind of what's happening from a natural standpoint, all right? So if I turn those off and I just turn on the overhead, okay, I'll put those on. The drum sound is this. Sorry, mic is on. Okay, so if I now put on the bass drum mics and the snare mic and just the overheads, it's this. Plus the room mics. All right, put those back on. Yeah, okay. So there's no, I'll put the snare bottom on. Okay. Generally run that kind of much lower than the top one. I don't like a lot of buzzy stuff in my, to hear that. Okay, and then I'll put the toms on, which are, you know, they're these old Shure SM80, SM91s, 98s, SM98s. So, and again, those have EQ-wise just a little bit of top end, you know, added. Maybe a little bit of low end here and there on the bigger drums especially, but it's not a lot of processing at all, right? So. And let's see, I'm missing the hi-hat here. And I do have, obviously you can hear the ambience. Let me shut off the ambience. So I use a Digi plugin for that. I use a Revibe plugin with, you know, it's just a plate with like 1.2 seconds, you know, so, you know, that's kind of the effect that I'm getting from the drum. So it's on there. So that's kind of it in a nutshell of what I do sound-wise. And again, you know, as we were saying, what was I going to say? The sound processing idea, you know, again, it all starts with the drums, the player, the tuning, the room, and then it's taking a picture of all that. How do you get your sound? How do you get the touch and the feel of the drum set into the system, right? So there's things like gain structure that are very important to understand, that you don't, especially in a digital world, you do not want to overload the inputs, okay? And then you don't want to overload going to the you know, the interfaces. It's always better to have a little bit of headroom and record your loudest hit and make sure you're not hitting any peaks, you know, because digital distortion is nasty and you can't get rid of it. It's terrible. So, well, maybe you can with some surgery, but it's better to just record it clean, and then you can always turn it up later, but you cannot turn down digital distortion as easily. So anyway, those are my sound clues. It's really coming kind of from a natural place, you know. There's not much muffling on these drums. You know, the way I use clear ambassadors on top and bottom, Remo, and coated ambassadors on the bass drum right now with one of my mufflers that I co-designed with them. And I try to just have the drums be as open generally. Now that may change on recordings for certain kinds of music, you know, it's always based on the music and the vision of how things sound. So, but that's how I start with it all.
Great. Here's a question, sort of a follow-up for that here. Tuning. Do you tune by note, frequency, by ear? I know you talk about this in the school, how you do that.
Yeah, yeah, basically, the tuning is by ear for the most part. 9 times out of 10, I'm kind of, my favorite interval, at least up here, is a fourth. Yeah, it's close. So, so that's generally what I do, and then it's usually a fifth between these guys, and if I play just 2 toms, it's usually a fifth. You know, relationships of heads. It's like a minor third, basically, between the bottom head and the top. And I just find that kind of that relationship works good for me as to how I like the drums to sound. Yeah.
All right.
There you go. Yeah.
Yep. and I think the tuning course in the school is like over an hour. So it's pretty.
Yeah, right. Yeah, between the tuning course and kind of the 2 recording courses and mixing, the recording mixing course that's up there, there's a little bit of direction and insight there that I think would can be helpful. It's and it's all from what I've learned from great engineers and paying attention and watching and asking questions and experimenting. Yeah. So, but it is a big part of it, how you present your sound.
Yeah. Excellent.
I'm just
a lot of questions going by here. We have about 1,400 people watching, so thank you, everybody.
Nice.
Okay. So many good questions here. Here's one. If you'd like to go into a little bit linear drumming, which you've talked about a little bit before, and Julian asked about breaking down fast linear fills, but just generally, it's kind of interesting how you talk about linear drumming in general. Some of the Dave Garibaldi stuff, maybe you could touch upon it a little bit.
Well, yeah, linear stuff and that approach has always been a big part of what I do and how I play, because most of the guys that I was listening to, especially in kind of the fusion jazz and fusion funk world, a lot of guys like David Garibaldi, like Steve Gadd, like Harvey Mason, like Billy Cobb, a lot of those guys were doing a lot of linear things, of course mixed in with other stuff. And just to be clear on the definition, it's basically linear means a melded part put together by different and opposing strokes. Okay, so I tend to use this example because it's kind of a good one, and it's a simple paradiddle, right? Taking a drumistic thing and putting it on the drum set, and that becomes a good demonstration of a linear type of groove between hi-hat and snare anyway. So each hand is playing different notes, and if you take that and you apply it to not thinking about drum strokes, but thinking about the phrasings, the accents, and the music that you want to make, and you approach it from a linear thing, I will sit down and just practice real absolute linear stuff, including the bass drum as well, so that what I'm playing is it gets me to be able to place those strokes and the voices that I'm playing on in time. And when you're doing this kind of stuff, it's always good to practice with a metronome or a click track or a song, anything that you can put it to, that you can play to. So kind of like this. So, a few examples. When I do hits, for example, if I'm playing accents with the band, a lot of times that's a very linear approach, like kind of what I just did there. If it's a ba ba, the quarter notes here, right? To ba ba boom doom ba, right? I may go 3. So I'm playing the accents, but I'm not just playing the accents, because that tends to stop the time. It stops the locomotion of the feel. So I always try to, to carry on that momentum with the subdivisions that usually turn it into a linear type of thing. So, again, I always say, practice singing this stuff first, so that you can go, okay, because the other side of this is the rhythmic precision. That's the thing that sometimes is missing, and particularly missing when folks don't play the linear subdivisions that actually keep the motion going. The tenets, it's very hard to actually play the accents in time when there's not a subdivision either being sung or preferably played, because it's unless it's just one of those things where it's like tutti, right? Italian word for means all, everybody together, right? You don't play anything else, right? Because that's a direction that sometimes a composer just wants it to be bap 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 bap, right? Instead of gat 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 gat, right, with all the subdivisions. So it shouldn't be a habitual thing to play in a linear fashion, but by the same token, it's good to be able to develop it, especially for that momentum carrying on. Yeah, there you go. Hey, Lou Joya. I see Lou Joya's in the house.
Yep. Here's one we haven't touched upon before. I haven't heard you talk about it much. Rivets versus chain, drilling a hole in your cymbals. You have 3 rivets in that cymbal there. Maybe something you could explain and sound.
Well, I have three rivets in this cymbal, which is the HHX effects, the Evolution effects crash, and I do have one in the ride. I just most of my projects that I've been doing, I like the sustain, and it's just one. I'm sorry, 1 rivet in the ride, 3 in this one. Yeah, too many rivets. And sometimes the rivet doesn't work, so I'll change up the ride. I actually meant to change it today just to do a different texture, and I forgot. Because this is the 22-inch Legacy, the heavy ride with the rivet, and it just gives that sustain, especially for, I like to use it with guitar players mostly. Doesn't maybe work as well in a bigger group where there's a lot of sustain going on with keyboards and guitar and all that type of thing. So, because it will, of course, ring over. Sometimes you don't want that. But the music that I play, it just, the cymbals both have this texture that, allows the rivets to carry on that thing. So it's an old school approach that guys used to use in jazz and played bebop. So when it was a it keeps ringing. It keeps a sustained thing going, both while you're playing and also when you let it go. Now there are times when I have to muffle it. I don't want it to ring through, so I grab a hold of it. But yeah, I like the sound of that. So that's what I do for that particular cymbal. And the effects, I always have it in there. I really like the 3 rivets in the effects. So there you go.
I think we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about how much attention your live album's getting these days. So Dave's got a new live record out, and it's getting a lot of press. So maybe you could talk about that for a second. It's great.
Yeah, we the relationship with Autumn Hill Records and the Silvermans kind of took off a couple of years ago when Rob and Mike invited us to come to St. Louis. Invited me to come to St. Louis through Jay Oliver, kind of, and Jay was kind of the vehicle that put us together. And they said, "Yeah, we're doing this jazz festival, the Chesterfield, Jazz Festival, and we want you to headline the show, bring a band." And Rob is, he's such a great guy, and he's very, supportive of the music, and he's like, "Yeah, we'd love for you to play some of the older stuff," and blah blah. So. So Jay and I started talking about it, and we put together kind of a reunion band that we toured with, more or less, complete with Tom Kennedy, of course, also from the St. Louis area, now living in New York. I got Buzz Featon to come back and play guitar, and then Gary Meek joined us, Gary was in the second iteration of the band. But we put it all together. We came here, in fact, to this studio and rehearsed for a day or two, and then we did the show. And I decided, well, this is a kind of a one-off, thing that we're doing here. Who knows if and when we're going to do it again? And thank God, we did it. We decided to record it, and we decided to film it. Steve flew out and kind of, took care of all the video, production and the folks there, and I recorded the show with two QSC Touch Mix 16s, which is my Rode mixer, and we used the mixers, and we just went right straight to a hard drive, and then I took it all home and edited and mixed it later, and it really came out great. In fact, we have the whole show on video in the school. It's part of the price of admission. You get to actually see the show, but the record. We remastered it, and it sounds fantastic. I think it sounds really great. Came out nice. It's a very, very cool documentation of some of the older songs that we played, and mixed with some of the newer ones. We did one from Gary. Gary's got a tune on there that we actually had recorded on my acoustic record. What Happened to My Good Shoes, and then Tom and I do our duet, and there's a lot of stuff. There's a whole lot of stuff on there that's cool. So yeah, very, very happy with it. Want to once again shout out to Autumn Hill Records for inviting me on the label, and it was kind of my wife's doing too. She came to St. Louis during that show, and Clivia was like, "Oh man, these guys are so great," and then her and I produced a record for her, and they invited her to be on the label too. So it's really a cool family of musicians. And now I believe Tom Kennedy is going to release his record that we did together called Stories, that's going to be on the label, and also Gary Meek's record that I'm not sure the name of yet, but those are coming up in the next few months, I think. So
yeah, I think Tom's is June 11th.
Yeah.
And yours, I just put a link in there so everyone can see in the chat. There's a link. I don't know if it's a live link, but they can go to it. It just has all the streaming links there. So if anyone wants to listen to it, it's free to listen to.
Yeah, and I think Mike Silverman's got obviously the Silverman brothers are recording and putting out their products too, which sound great. And Rob is doing a really cool record called Drumology. He's got, I think, one's out already, and he keeps doing them, and he gets all these guest drummers to come in. So we got some surprises coming up on that, so that'll be cool too. Yeah,
very cool.
All right,
so check out the live record, and if you're in the school, make sure to go find the video of it, because that's the only place you'll find it for now anyway.
Cool. All right, what else we got here? One guy, Elijah asked, "Are you singing the phrases while I'm playing them?" No, that's not what I mean by singing the phrases. Because when you're playing, it's a spontaneous thing for me. Anyway, I'm spontaneously playing what happens to come to me at that point in time, in that moment. The singing the phrases is practicing it away from the drum set to actually understand how to sing what you're envisioning against the pulse, okay? All the feel stuff, the inflections, the pulling back, the phrasings. That's what I'm talking about, to learn how to sing that, because then you internalize it, then you actually understand it. And it's the same with even simpler precision of time. Just taking 16th notes and practicing, singing accents. Right? You get all those things so that the precision becomes, what you want it to. You can always loosen it up and make it sloppy and funky later. Understand the precision first, so that when you have to play, right? Get the singing together, and then when you want to, it's going to make it easier to play. Trust me on that one, that's for sure. Absolutely. As somebody asked, do I still have the old Kent snare drum from Master Plan? That's funny. Um, um, I never, that's Steve Roberts saying, Steve. I never used that drum again after that session, actually. It's in storage somewhere. So, yes, the answer to the question probably still has the same heads on it since Master Plan session. But yeah, that was an old Kent snare drum that I just found in my neighbor's attic in whenever it was, 89 or something. And, maybe before that. And it just had this, this sound. And if I go back and listen to Master Plan now, it's definitely got a sound, a lot of compression, tuned pretty low and popping, but I used it on a lot of the tunes, not all of them though. Didn't use it on the title track. I didn't use it on. There's a tune that I used the piccolo snare drum on at the time. Still didn't have my signature drums then. So, but yeah, that's that. Okay, Rusty asks, how about the Electric Band live album? Well, that's the reason that I have not been playing so much, is because Bernie Kirsch and I are on a marathon mix expedition to finish the Chick record, to the Electric Band compilation live from over the last few years. And we are within 2 days of finishing. So that record is going to start, you're going to start hearing about it pretty soon. And I'm really excited about it, man. It's a great, great documentation of the record. And I'm very honored and happy that Chick and Bernie asked me to turn the dials and be involved and with the mixing aspect. And Bernie is he's just got so much great experience and great ears that couldn't do it without him the way we're doing it. It just sounds great. It's really, if I do say so myself. So it'll be out there soon. We hope within the next few months, and we'll see what happens. Yeah, great.
That's great.
Yeah.
I saw a really good question and it just went flying away. Okay, well, maybe I'll be able to get it back here. Thank you, everybody, for joining in. There's so many questions going by. It's amazing. Really appreciate it. There's Chris Castillo saying hello.
Hey, Chris.
Dennis Moody.
Leandro's in there, too. Jim Mola, holy cow. Jim, I haven't heard from Jim, if that's the Jim that I know from New York. A lot of guys, yeah. Tom, Kowalski, sorry, from our school. Very cool. Yeah, I've seen a lot of guys from the school that are already in there.
Yeah,
And,
this question was from somebody. Oh, here it is. This is someone new to the school from Turkey. Or he was asking about the Turkish musicians you played with in that music, and actually, I think he's asked a few times, and one of them he was just asking about specifically preparing for those time signatures and that kind of music. That was pretty challenging, wasn't it?
Very much so, yeah.
Yeah.
Orhan Osman was the artist and bouzouki player, and that's where I met Oz Zeldin, actually. And that was the first time we played together, and Kai Eckhart played bass. And man, that was probably some of the most challenging stuff that I had to prepare, because it was really out of my wheelhouse, And lots of time signatures. In those territories, I think they write the melodies first, and then they figure out the time signatures later. And there's not much care or attention put on it, in my opinion, because it's like I was rehearsing one thing without music for a while. I was just doing it by ear, and I was just hearing it in 5, because the precision of the rhythm wasn't so perfect on the demo, and there was no music. So I was like, oh, that's 5. And then I got the music, and it was actually in 9. And I was like, how did I miss this badly? And that was still to this day one of the toughest ones for my mind to overcome, because I heard it another way. And don't ask me how I confused 9 and 5. I was hearing it in 5/4, and it was actually written in 9/8. So it wasn't even 10/8. It wasn't even close. You know what I mean? So, but the way the phrases were, especially this one section, I had to. Boy, my hands were sweating before that one, because when we did the gig, we actually filmed it. It's out there somewhere on video, And yeah, very, very challenging stuff. But at the end of the day, yeah, how I prepared for it, I just practiced to the demos. Finally, I got some music, so yeah, I was definitely woodshedding and practicing quite a bit for that. And then we rehearsed. We didn't rehearse that much. I think it was two or maybe a couple of rehearsals. It was it, you know. And but a lot of fun, a lot of very, very challenging stuff. Yeah. So, but on that note, you know, that's when you ask about that, preparation is the key. You know, there's nothing more frustrating for a group of professional, you know, prepared musicians to come into a rehearsal, and there's always that one guy who didn't do the homework, and they're like, what's that? How does this go? You don't want to be that guy, that person. Okay, do your homework, learn the music, and spend some time, because you know a lot of people ask, do you ever get nervous? And generally the answer is no. This situation would have been the closest to nervous, because for me the reason you're nervous is because you're unprepared, either with yourself or with the music, or there's something not comfortable, so it's stressing you, right? It's making you uncomfortable. And I know for me, at least, that's why I would get anxious. You know, nervous is not the right word at this stage. You know, but yeah, you want to be prepared. So do your homework. Absolutely.
Here's one that's completely different. It may have just gone away. Oh, here it is. The age-old question of endorsements, and people ask me about this a lot at the camp. Like, how do you get an endorsement? You're really giving, right? And when you give one,
Sorry, you went underwater there for a minute, Steve. What was that?
Oh, sorry about that. Talk about endorsements. Something that, yeah, Brian's asking about that. A lot of people ask about that at Drum Fantasy Camp. How do I get one? But what you're doing is you're giving one. You are endorsing somebody's product, and usually you're in a position to be someone who that company would want to help sell their product. So how did you get into that position?
Right. Well, I just saw one question here that I'll answer really quickly from Bops Studios. Have I ever used a Dynasonic? I own one. I actually have. Yeah, it's a Rogers Dynasonic snare drum. Yeah, it's a very special strainer drum. Yeah, I have a 5.5 version that is in storage somewhere too. It's actually in really good shape. Yeah, used to love the drum when I was a kid. I bought it in 1972, I think. So it's either late 60s or an early 70s drum. But endorsements, yeah. When you think about this, it's you know, people. It's like you said. I mean, companies want to sell stuff. So they go after the people that are exposed and that hopefully represent the equipment the way they want their company to be represented. So for me, I've never taken an endorsement, you know, that I didn't believe in the product or wasn't using the product first. Or that you know, that the offer wasn't there to create my own product, which you know, for the Sabian stuff especially, and so that's kind of the bottom line. You can't expect to get endorsements if some of the pieces of the puzzle are missing, right? Because it's you gotta play, you gotta be able to play, and you know, there has to be exposure. Nowadays, it's a little bit different than, of course, when I was growing up. You know, there was no YouTube, there was no, you know, internet sensations. So it was back in the day of, you know, it's like being in front of crowds, being, you know, in front of audiences, people that see the brand and want to go buy it. They hear it on the records, you put it on the records, that's what you use, and people are like, oh, that sounds. So yeah, I sold a lot of Yamaha drums and a lot of stuff over the years, because the what people saw attracted, you know, the ones that liked it, and you know, so the sound, yeah, it's part of the deal, and what you use to to do what you do. It's like the great sports figures. You want to know, God, how do they do that besides having spent the time to get really good at what they do? They have some gear. So that's why, a lot of them are endorsed, and that's that. And that's kind of how it goes. My motto on this is don't worry about the endorsements yet, unless you're, at that point. But it's just get good is my advice. Just get good. Just be able to play, have a great attitude, show up on time, be positive, and be the guy that somebody wants to work with. It's like we want that guy, that person, and just go for it. And the other thing that I always say is let the playing do the talking. Please don't be that person that brags about yourself. It's, I don't know, everybody's got their way. That's certainly not attractive to me. So I always so respectful of sports guys too. It's like, I don't need to see a show or whatever's going on. Just do the job, and play it with emotion, with passion, and be real. So that's me anyway, but that's what I try to do and have always tried. So that's my take on endorsements.
Yeah. Now, the Yamaha endorsement, didn't that start right around the time you got the Simon & Garfunkel tour? Is that correct?
That's correct. Yep, 1983. I was playing at that point. I was playing a custom designed set that were maple shells, and yeah, there were some horn endorsers in the band, and they came to me, and I was like hoping they would, because all my favorite players played Yamaha, and that's the reason I went with the company. It's the company I wanted to endorse, and I got lots of offers over the years, to go elsewhere, and it was never even an idea. Even like back in the day, people were offering a good amount of money to leave Yamaha, and it's like, I'm not going to play something that's going to compromise what I want to do expression-wise and how I want me to sound, for money that I'll just go blow anyway. Then what? So a lot of guys did that, and they jumped around to 3 or 4 different, drum companies. And now I've been there since '83, and that's why these Phoenix drums are killing. They're just great, and the rest of their lineup too. The Absolute Hybrid Maples are wonderful. These are kind of the Bentley, I would say, of drums, in my opinion. The Phoenix. Anyway, yeah. That's my opinion. But yeah, so that's it.
Yeah, and you showed up to gigs and played not Phoenix kits.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Pretty happy.
Oh yeah, no. Like I said, the newer Absolute Maples hybrids are really great. They're the newer maple kits out of China, and they're fantastic. They have the tour customs are great. The live customs are great. They're even remaking the recording custom, which I know Steve Gadd plays. So they're fantastic drums. I've been to both factories, Japan and China, and the consciousness, the level of professionalism, the way that the people make the equipment, it's top notch. So really
good
really
people
cool.
there. Good,
absolutely.
Good, long-lasting relationships. Here's a question then. Why did you switch to Sabian? So that had to do with a little bit of creativity on your part, as I understand it.
Yeah. Well, the whole thing, to be quite honest with you, I mean, look, Zildjian makes great cymbals. There's a lot of great cymbal companies out there, that make great cymbals, and Sabian is most certainly one of them, who was still in the Zildjian family, for those that don't know. They were created in 1982, I think, thereabouts, in Canada, because Robert and Armand had an argument, and they split apart, and that was that. So, but for those of you that don't know, I was actually a Sabian endorser first in 1983, and it was while Robert was still alive. We used to joke about it because I couldn't get the artist relations guy to call me back. So Zildjian was knocking, so I went. Had good relationship with them. It was great. It was fantastic stuff. To be honest with you, though, there was a period at the end for me where they were making fantastic rides, but the crashes, sorry to say, were just not what I was hearing. They were just not making those that sound that I had enjoyed previously. And it was really frustrating for me. So it was just one of those moments where Sabian came knocking and gave me the opportunity to co-design cymbals that I knew weren't in the line. And I knew if they could make them, they would be popular, they would be successful, and they would get the sound that I was looking for, which they did. And I saw somebody say that they missed the Zildjian sound from the richness that I had. Let me just address that for a second, because for me, what I noticed right away, like when the change happened overnight, the Sabian cymbals, for me, have a real great place in the mix. And sometimes, the other stuff I was playing in that low, rich aspect got in the way of, it was harder to mix for me. These guys have their own place, which for me, they're still dark. They still have a very, rich sound to them, but easier to mix for me. They have their own place in the mix that I liked a lot better. But for me, it was about the feel of these cymbals to get, and also, the thing that used to drive me nuts about buying cymbals when I was a kid is like, it's like they used to put these stamps on them: light, medium heavy. It's like, well, I understand why, of course, because it's kind of like wood, right? There's, the inconsistencies of the raw material. You can't put a real close wrap on the weight allowances, right? Because the company would go broke. So, so that's why they used to maybe stamp them, because they were in a certain weight category. But I realized, very soon that really affected how the cymbals sounded. And then, of course, they want to make them so they don't break and all that type of stuff. So they started making them heavier, and then they sound like gongs to me, and they're very hard. They're resistant and didn't play. And that's what Sabian was able to figure out for me. They were able to figure out how to make these things to be buttery, explosive, really in the feel that I like to have, along with the sound, which is very high fidelity. They just have a very high fidelity sound to me. They're easy to play. That's the thing. It's like there's, that's back in that period, right after I was studying with Freddie, and I had changed a bunch of stuff for the path of least resistance was the phrase, and I wanted the equipment to be the same thing. And that's what these cymbals really, along with sounding beautiful, they actually helped me to realize the path of least resistance, because they allow me to express without having to hit them hard, and they're pleasing. That's a big thing. You hit some cymbals, it's like, yay. I don't like harsh, heavy cymbals. So that's just me, again. And so the cymbals were designed. So that's how Evolution, HHX Evolution, was born, and also Legacy. Hi-hats are Legacy here, too. So, yeah, that's the story. And they were also willing to give the signature line, by the way, which, it's, which at the time, Sabian, if somebody's got an idea, they were very cool about, giving the artist the credit and putting their name on it, which was not such a big deal for me. My name is real small under the bell. I didn't want these cymbals to be kind of, a bragging point for mine. I could care less, actually. I want the product to be there. Yeah, I was involved, but, that's about it. So, and other companies weren't interested in doing that. So, so that's it was a win-win situation as far as I'm concerned.
Well, some people have asked before, did you really help design these, or did they just put your name on it? But I remember I met you around the time that you were working on some of these, and you had stacks of these cymbals in your LA studio, and they had Post-it notes on them, and you were making notes about what you liked and didn't like, and you were sending them back. I think I remember that. Or am I making that up?
No. We went through quite a few months of back and forth, and then finally I just went to the factory. That's what really kind of did it. And I mean, ironically, I got stuck there because it was over 9/11 that I went, and so I was stuck at the factory while all that was going on. And I actually couldn't leave, and that's actually why Legacy was created at the same time, because I didn't have anywhere to go. And I said, okay, let's make some more cymbals. So they were into it. But yeah, it took a lot of trial and error, lots. you know, just to, I wasn't, if I was gonna do it, I wasn't gonna stand for anything less. And what I was getting to with the weights before is that these cymbals all fit into a criteria of weight. The allowance is much smaller because it's a specialized line. And that was my stipulation. I said, I want the people in any store throughout the world to play what I play. I don't want it to just be my thing, and then, you know, you go buy that thing and it's not the thing. I want the thing to be the thing. So that was that was a very strong stipulation, and they managed to really pull it off. So bravo to Sabian, Mark Love, and the crew. Yeah. There you go.
Now you're going to play a tune today.
I am.
Are you wanting to do that now, or do you want to answer a few more questions?
Well, let's see. Elijah asked about I just saying I know it's the second time I'm actually answering him here, but it's a good question. Yeah, or there's another one here. I've seen this twice now too, and it's not, you know, some of these are, you know, people ask about this stuff, but Car and a couple of others are asking about the single strokes between the hands and the feet. Now, again, you know, musically speaking, this is about, you know, this is about as useful as, you know, playing with a snow shovel, but but for the most part, you know, it's a fun thing to pull off, and I do use it musically sometimes, especially if I'm playing between, you know, the left floor tom and snare, and, you know, what they're talking about is singles between the hands and the feet, right? That thing. Okay, so as you can see from the videos, from the cameras, there's consistency between, you know, the limbs. All right, the foot. All right, the foot is moving in a way that is consistent. I'm not moving it all over the place, right? So it's a very consistent, slow to fast. And for the hand, I'm using either a wrist stroke or I use molar for multiple, you know, accents within the patterns, right? Sorry. So a little out of practice with that, but generally speaking, that's how I do that. So you practice from slow to fast, and I actually go over that in the hand-foot technique course in the school. But again, don't be obsessed with it. Like I said, it's kind of snow shovel material. But find the musical place for it. It works. It can be cool. And in a drum solo, it's kind of cool to pull it off. It's a show-off thing for the most part. Now, the other question that I noticed is from Elijah. It's a time by motion, and yeah, this is kind of a big deal for me when I'm talking about you know, playing time when you're playing a groove, and how it's approached. So, excuse me. You know, our job as drummers is to play consistent time, right? We want to play consistent time feel, and we want it to feel good, right? And that is dependent sometimes on the rules of the music, how the composer wants it to feel, and what kind of feel you want to put into it. You know, do you want it on top and edgy, or do you want it laid back and fat and, like, you know, the feel stuff, right? So I came to, you know, I used to play from a very cerebral place, and this was because mostly back in the day growing up in New York in the studios, I was coming into the scene at the same time Mr. Lin was, meaning the drum machine. So, you know, we were in competition with that perfection all of a sudden. And a lot of, you know, producers at that point there, you know, it was easier to get a sound with the machines. It was easier to get perfect time and all that stuff. So, boy, you had to really kind of have all that together and be almost as perfect as possible. So I used to play, you know, a lot less from the motion aspect and more from the head aspect. So that means I was counting a lot. And, you know, and what that does, as soon as you go into that headspace, this tends to tighten up because it focuses, it's not in the right place. You're focusing it up here, and you kind of forget about what's going on from a relaxed motion place. So think about what you do when you walk down the street. You know, you're in a tempo. You could put a click to it, right? You're moving and you're walking, and you're just in tempo. You can speed up, slow down. So the faster you go, less motion. The slower you go, then you can swing things a little bit more as you get into this zone. So you don't walk like this, right? So the correlation is I can play a groove like this, where each motion is very stiff, right? And I'm not putting any attention on what's going on with my body's motion in the space. And again, this is a whole course in the school. But just to briefly touch on it, if we approach playing the time in that same way as walking down the street, where you consider one very important word, and that is the space between the beats, okay? Between the notes. It's not the notes themselves. Because when I play this note, where's the next one? Well, I don't know unless I go right, but this is not moving. So what happens if we fill that space with a flowing motion that is the same each time? Okay, so. So that is the foundation of it. That's the basic concept of what I try to do when I'm playing, because A, it takes it out of this, B, it puts it into a more flowing, natural place, and C, I can actually control the feel by how much motion I put into it. Okay, if I'm playing this groove, for example. And I want it to lay back more, I'm just going to put a little bit more motion in the space. Okay. Just a little more wind up, just a hair more space, and not to slow down. That's why you got to do it with a click, so that you don't get in the habit of pulling it back. You don't want to slow down the tempo. You know, unless that's where, you know, you're all designed, you all want to go there and get the song. If somebody counts it off too fast, whatever the case might be, which has happened to us at times. So that's the whole time by motion thing, and I really enjoy playing that way, because it puts the feel into it for me, and it allows me to play a little more organically, a little bit more from here, not so much from here. So that's the idea of it.
Cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Where do I place my foot on the kick pedal? I place my foot on the kick pedal down the footboard, because I play heel up all the time. I'm not up here, okay? I'm not all the way up. I'm down, I would say, from the top of the silver part here, I'm probably down about 1.5 inches. And there's enough spring tension here so that this is not hitting the head, okay? And that allows the pedal and the beater to be in a flex position that rebounds and works with me. Okay, so when I make the strokes, so I'm pretty much in the same position, unless I do doubles. If I do that, that's what happens with the foot. So yeah, I don't play heel down at all, and I know a lot of guys profess that, you know, you should be able to play both ways. There's advantages to one or the other, but for me, if I play heel down, it takes me out emotionally of the feel of the song, because my balance point changes. It puts me on my heels instead of my rear end on the seat, where I can kind of move from the center of my body and have that dancing feeling instead of a stationary feeling when I'm playing with my heels down. If I'm doing this, nothing moves, right? But if I'm doing this and I have that motion, then I'm in a position where I feel involved, and I love that. That makes it happen for me. So yeah.
But when you say heel up, you're not heel up. You're slightly.
Yeah, it's heel off. It's heel off the ground, ball of the foot, on the pedals. Yeah, it's not like this for sure, because that would be tension everywhere and force. So it's all about just being relaxed, pivoting at the ankle. And yes, the thigh, the hip flexors, this all gets put to use here, but generally speaking, it's that path of least resistance feel that allows the beater and the pedal to work with me, and it kind of just goes in hand with everything that's going on with the body. It's an all-in-one type of feeling. But anyway, we get into that. There's foot technique courses, and the setup course has a lot to do with it too, because it's that heights and angle thing that play into foot position, your position at the drums in general. So yeah, over 50 hours of material on the school at this point, and we got some new play-alongs coming. We got some new courses that I'll be working on as soon as I get out of this mix. And yeah, it's been a full-on thing.
Yeah, it'll be worth it.
Yeah,
I would think.
Exactly. Let's hope. Yeah, it's really cool. All right, so I think it's time. We're well over today. I'm gonna play to a song that was composed by a fabulous keyboard player who was in the second iteration of my group, Steve Weingart, and this was on my, I think it was on, which record was this on? Was it on Perpetual Motion?
Thinking Perpetual Motion.
Yeah, I think it was. The original, was recorded on that record, and it's called Child's Play, and my daughter Claire is actually singing on that version when she was 5, so that would be about right. Yeah.
Perpetual Motion.
Yeah. So that was the original, and it's really kind of this cool, 12/8, 6/8, 4/4 African-ish vibe type of thing that I kind of came up with my own part to it. There's nothing authentic about it, but it's kind of a cool part. Well, we just redid it because Steve has been doing a series of videos on his own lately with a bunch of different wonderful musicians for Casio, which is his endorsing company, and so we decided to do. He asked me to do a video for him. We decided to do that song, and we're going to turn it into a play-along, which will be available on the school. That's one of the next things we're going to be working on. So, but go check out the Casio website, and you can see the video that he put together. I videotaped mine, and he did all the production there and that, and I mixed it for him. And yeah, so this is that song called Child's Play. It's been redone to be, he's playing kind of an acoustic piano sound, and it's not quite the fusion production, but it's still a cool vibe. So we we hope you enjoy it. And I really want to thank everybody for coming out, hanging out with us. Should be back in 2 weeks, God willing, and if everything stays as it is. And yeah, Steve, got anything to add?
No, thanks everybody for coming. Thanks for everybody in the school as well. I see a lot of people tuning in. We have a really cool community with the online school, so thank you.
Oh yeah, the Facebook page. Got to mention that. That's part of the attraction of the school. You know, we have our own Facebook private page forum, and the guys are in there all the time. I'm in there all the time, throwing stuff back and forth, critiquing videos. A lot of very cool community. There's been some guys there since the inception, and you know, we really have a nice place to talk drums and stuff. So come on in and check it out. All right.
It's rare for somebody like you to be taking that kind of a hands-on approach, so I know everybody appreciates that. It's great.
Well, it's the only place that I make the time to do it. I can't possibly. I mean, none of us have that kind of time if we want to get any work done, right? So, but yeah, I love being in there with everybody. I love seeing everybody's. You know, they post up videos, and the guys. There's some really great players in there too. So really cool. All right. Well, here's this song, and thank you all once again so much. Have a great rest of your Sunday wherever you are, and you know, hopefully we'll see you in a couple weeks. Keep your eye out for the ad. All right. Thanks very much, everybody. Okay, so here's Child's Play. Let's we'll put on this video to start here to see this little tom groove that I'm playing. Okay. Think I'm ready. There we go. Let's make sure that I am, in fact, not quite. Okay, here we go. Yeah, that looks okay. Here we go. Let's do it again without the vocal mic on, please. Thank you very much. All right. There you go. Child's Play, everybody. Thank you so much. Hope you enjoyed. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. All right, everyone. Take care. Ciao. Nice to see you again. Be well. See you next time.
Soon.